The Albanese government waited until after the election to finally approve a 40-year extension of the giant North West Shelf gas project. It waited because it didn't want to upset the Green vote before the election, and it didn't want to run out of gas after the election. That's why it approved it. But one Green extremist in Perth today decided to convince Foreign Minister Penny Wong, with sweet reason, in the way of the left, of course, that her government was wrong here, and he did it by making intelligent arguments she perhaps hadn't considered.
Orders drop out while your government pretends to tout climate action. How could you do this to us? Disrupt borough power! Disrupt borough power!
To the panel, Will Kingston, host of Fire at Will, a podcast from the Spectator on politics and culture, and Sky News commentator Joe Hildebrand.
Good evening.
Will, what is going through the mind of such an activist? Are they really thinking, this is, I'm going to change her mind completely. When I finish with her, she will think, I was wrong. Or is this a form of terrorism, to do as we say, or we will make your life hell?
Well, Andrew, these activists aren't exactly the sharpest knives in the drawer, so I think there is a risk of over-analysis. Still, two things probably going through their head, and one thing they probably haven't considered. Number one, they no doubt think the world will end if climate action is not taken. Two, they no doubt get a warm and fuzzy feeling from feeling like they're doing their bit to save the planet, which no doubt gives them a sense of purpose in an otherwise unimpressive, unsuccessful life. But the thing which you need to keep in mind, which they haven't considered, is that Australia cannot do one thing to solve this problem if indeed it is a problem. They would be far better spending their time jumping on a plane, going to Tiananmen Square and heckling Xi Jinping, because he's one of the few people who could solve the problem. And I would love to see what would happen if they decided to do so.
But Joe, I'm fascinated by this mindset, because Will says, they might be stupid, but I mean, a lot of these activists claim to see further than most of us, often university educated. What do they think they're doing by intimidating people or trying to intimidate people like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I can tell you because I am a former student activist. I was just talking to my best mate about our days at Melbourne University and just how obnoxious we were and how embarrassed we are about who we were. And one of our colleagues, one of our comrades in those days, is now the Vice-Chancellor of Melbourne University, and she's just turfed out a couple of trots for harassing Jewish academics on the campus. So this is how far we've come. But the answer is that the purpose is not actually to change anything. The purpose is not to get the government to change its mind or get the policy to change, even if they don't actually realise that. Clearly, some guy running up and leaping alongside Penny Wong like the leper in A Life of Brian is not going to make her suddenly, tear up a consultation process that's taken years. What it's about is basic narcissism. It's about virtue signalling and showing how pure you are, how much you care about the world, so that you can then tell people how much you care. And it's a bit like, why do young people, we talked about youth crime last time I was here. Why do young people fall into gangs? It's part of this kind of peer pressure, people wanting to prove their worth, and it might be prove how much you care, prove what a fearless activist you are, prove that you can, boost a car or break into someone's house so people will think how tough you are. It's all about you. It's all about the person, the individual, nothing to do with the actual issue.
I wonder whether, too, it's a little bit of an element of, look what we'll do to her, so don't you dare think of following her example. Might be a little bit of that as well. I want to show you, Will, a reminder card that's been sent by someone in Victoria's Mornington Shire to remind parents to register their kid for kindergarten. It's a card that, under the picture of the children, which we've blurred out, flies the pride flag, that's the one on the left, with symbols for gay, lesbian, transsexual, queer, intersex people, etc., plus some race symbols as well. The mayor, who was anti-woke, says he and the Shire's CEO had no idea this was going on. They're appalled and they're trying to sort it all out. What do you make of it? What's going through someone's mind to put a highly sexualised flag, sex politics, under a picture of children?
Yeah, well, they're loonies. That, for me, is not the most interesting part of the story. The interesting part of the story is that the mayor didn't know about this. And this goes to why I don't think we are at the end of woke. Because even if you have the leadership layer of our society, the politicians, the mayors, the CEOs who go, we're going to actually drop this silly woke stuff. And even if you have the working class, the normal people who say we're over this woke stuff, there are still this middle layer, the teachers putting the flags on posters like that, the HR managers and marketing managers and businesses, that middle layer that will continue to push this because they've been indoctrinated in the universities, and they will continue to do this often in the shadows of the leaders who they're meant to be accountable to. It's that disconnect between the mayor and the person and the loony who did this, which I think is an insight into whether or not this woke stuff will continue to keep happening.